For me, it's always been about creating a relationship with people and getting to know their business. I never, ever have felt icky about something that I've sold at the end of the day. And I think that's how it should be.
WordPress is built to be migrated, right? Data liberation, the way in which the open source technology behind it supports the opportunity for you to migrate and move things around. So why aren't we doing it more?
Sales is all about money, and there are ways to do it in a very honest way. But the way to get the people above you to want to do that is to show them where the money is.
Welcome to Impressive Hosting, where we seek to uncover the core tenets of great WordPress hosting. I am your host, Jesse Friedman, and today I am bringing on Elise Prather, a colleague and a teammate from Automattic, recently brought onto the WP Cloud team. Welcome, Elise.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be on the podcast. I've been listening so far and been in the WordPress community for a little over 10 years and love working with WordPress and really excited to be on the WP Cloud team. So cool to be on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks. So I wanted to bring you on today because obviously we've got, we've been working together for a couple months now. We've got some good stories and we're doing some good out there. But at the same time, you have a lot of experience selling into and around the hosting world. So I thought it would be good for us to have a conversation around the best practices, the ethics around selling. How do you keep the lights on while also making sure that you're not doing any kind of fear marketing or scaring the pants off of customers? Before we dive into that, you're in Nebraska, so you've been traveling the world recently as well. We recently had a team meetup in the Dominican Republic, where WP Cloud's team got together to kind of talk about and shape the roadmap for the rest of the year. I got to know you a lot better there, but I'm curious, what intrigued you about Automattic? What made you want to apply?
Yeah, when I first got into selling hosting, we weren't on the cloud yet, and so I saw a lot of things change like through very early in my career selling. And by the time I was looking for my next role and Automattic popped up, of course I'd always wanted to work at Automattic. One of the hosting companies I worked at was a startup. And a lot of the things that we did there was really framed around what Matt was doing here. So I already knew, a lot of the way that Automattic functioned internally. But when I saw that the role was specific for WP Cloud and I looked up the infrastructure, I called a friend of mine, Aaron Onken, who I still talk to very frequently, an old colleague of mine, and was like, can I tell you about this cloud platform and you can tell me what you think because I'm very excited about it. And we just sat talking about it. I was telling him all the things that I was looking up on it. And of course, then you look up your to-be boss and I was like, okay, Jesse Friedman seems pretty cool. So, thankfully when I went through the interview process, everything went really well and you guys wanted to hire me. But I've been very, very familiar with Automattic and everything that, the teams have been working on for some time. So I'm really, really excited to finally be here.
That's cool. Yeah, we're excited to have you. We've been doing a lot of work recently around pulling together ideas to bring WP Cloud to more hosting companies. A lot of our mission is driven towards raising the bar and creating a higher standard around hosting, but also empowering even smaller hosts to take on an infrastructure that otherwise might not be accessible to them. So WP Cloud is making its way through both small and large hosts. Right now, you're focused on small to medium to large hosts, kind of bridging the gaps between those areas. Where do you see markets that are really interesting? Are you thinking outside of North America right now? Or are you kind of getting into Europe and the rest of the world?
I think a market that's really interesting to me is Japan because there doesn't seem to be a lot of hosting companies in that market right now. But the other markets that I've been looking into are Australia, and I find it interesting whenever I'm able to find like areas where there aren't a lot of the same hosting companies that you see those names over and over and over again, because then it means I'm typically running into mid-market hosting companies in that area that are doing things that we wouldn't typically see. And I think it's been a really neat way for me to get to know the industry a little better as well.
Yeah. And before joining Automattic, you didn't travel as much, right? We've talked about this. You've been to different parts of the world, but you've definitely been traveling a lot more. We're going to this is probably going to air after CloudFest, but we're going to Germany together in just a couple weeks. You excited for that conference?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I had a donut chat with another automatician this week, and he was telling me that I need to make sure we get kebabs when we're there. He said
Oh,
that's like
yes.
the number one thing we need to make sure we get while we're there. So I'm really excited for the conference itself, but also for food and getting to know Germany. I've never been there.
Yeah, the food's amazing. Well, one of the things we're going to be doing at CloudFest is obviously networking, talking to folks, getting the word out about WP Cloud and the other things that are going on in the industry, talking about the needs for, collaboration between hosting companies to preserve and improve the WordPress ecosystem. We also had Christian from I2 Coalition on the podcast previously, and we talked about the Secure Hosting Alliance and bringing hosting companies together to create more sustainable hosting, better ethics and responsibilities around hosting and all that stuff. But I'm very excited to get to know everybody again at CloudFest because it's an opportunity for everybody to come together where otherwise they're very competitive. When we think about ethics and we think about responsibility, you've been selling inside of hosting for a while. I'm sure you have a lot of stories of some good and some bad within the hosting industry. I'm curious, what are some of the things that you do in your head to draw a line between making sure that you're getting a product out to customers, something that they possibly need, but also doing it in a way that if it's a security product, you're not scaring people. If it's, a marketing or performance product, that you're not trying to leverage something and squeeze them. How do you draw that line, but also make sure that they have the things that they need and you're keeping the lights on at the hosting company?
For me, it's always been about the needs of who I'm talking to, and not every single person or company rather that I'm speaking with is going to need every single product. So, as a salesperson, there are a lot of different methodologies out there, but what I've always subscribed to is I'm going to get you what you and your team need right now. We'll make sure there's a little bit of wiggle room, but I'm also talking to them about their roadmap, their hiring roadmap, what they plan on, if they can tell me, like, what are you expanding on? What are you contracting on? And then they call it future selling. But for me, it's really, okay, this is what we know your immediate needs are right now. We know what your roadmap is. Let's meet in like 6 to 8 months and reevaluate what you said you wanted to do. And let's see if you need that exact thing that we knew you needed back then or if it needs to shift. And I think it creates a lot of trust with people because I'm not looking to make margins where they don't need to be there. A lot of hosting companies are selling, contracts that can be month to month. So if you're not earning the trust of the people that you're working with, they can be gone in 30 days, sometimes less if there's another hosting company out there that's willing to just front that 30-day cost. So for me, it's always been about creating a relationship with people and getting to know their business so that I don't I never ever have felt icky about something that I've sold at the end of the day. And I think that's how it should be.
I like that. It's a good way to feel like you've done a good job. Is if you can go home at the end of the day and feel like clean and absolved of any kind of nasty sales tactics. So you mentioned building a relationship, and I want to double back on that. But some of the things that I think overlaps with the way in which we approach selling with WP Cloud is that you're not doing this high pressure. I'm going to hard sell you and try to convince you that you need this. The way in which we do it with WP Cloud is that the platform speaks for itself. So we let you test it, right? We give you
Mhm.
the pitch, we help you understand what it is that we're offering, and then you're off and running. You can go and try it for yourself. for the most part, people come back and they're blown away. They want to learn how it is that our systems teams is building this architecture. But so has that been helpful not only from a perspective of selling to a host, but selling from a host? How do you balance that with the need to? I'm sure you had sales goals and revenue numbers that you had to hit. Like how do you kind of like let it go, even just for a little while, or maybe even a longer period of time, and not worry about whether or not you're going to make that sale?
Mhm. Well, I think a big part of sales, pipeline, 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 but pipeline is relationship building, and you should be doing that consistently, and you should be checking in with people even if there's not something on the table to sell right now. I mean, the hosting industry moves very, very quickly, and there's a lot of things that people are constantly adding on as services, or they'll acquire another company, and so they've got all these new employees and new products. Maybe they even acquired another hosting company. I think part of it for me has been, if I'm just consistently having conversations with people, I'm not really worried about my pipeline when I know that, we talked about our roadmap however many months ago. We already have something on the calendar, or we already have a relationship where, you know, people on your staff maybe had a kid, like we're sending them, little onesies, like cute little things like that. And the point of that is to be a part of, like, feel like you're a part of their team, even if you're not actually working with them yet, or even if you are. Um, I guess all of that to say, if you're doing sales the right way, it's not going to feel so tight and anxious, and it won't feel like a
Yeah,
roller coaster. I've managed quite a few sales teams, and the people that are the best are the people that they're not a roller coaster, and you don't want a roller coaster either. You want someone who's very steady with the work that they're doing, because those roller coaster reps are people that will have a really, really, really good couple months, and then they'll burn themselves out, and then you don't really know when they're going to come back up again. So I think just consistency and being genuine with people, it really, really goes a long way.
yeah, that's a really great point. So you're essentially building up these relationships, developing trust, dropping these seeds, so that when they need something, they know to call you, to reach out to you, and you become an extension of the services that they're building or building on, so that way they never feel like they're kind of scrambling or lost or anything like that.
Absolutely. I think there's also something to be said about working with the people who are already on. Like, let's say, someone signs on with us, and like I keep that relationship going. There's no, like, I'm not gonna, send them a ton of emails if they've got, a lot of like our customer experience or customer success people reaching out, but keeping in touch with people and understanding still what's going on with their business is really great, because part of sales is also having a really, really solid feedback loop with the product team and engineering team. And when you keep close with the people, even after they have signed on, then when you're in a town hall and they're talking about, oh, we have this, service that we want to do in beta, well, then I can DM someone and say, I know exactly who you should get in touch with. This is what they were planning to do this year. And you can trust that they're going to give us genuine feedback. And yeah, I mean, it's very much like I said, just consistency, no matter what stage you're at, even after they've signed.
So you're painting a very different picture from what I think of when I think of sales. Now, it's funny because you and I work on the same team, but I don't have a very strong sales background. I've obviously been in business for a very long time. I can sell in a room, but I've never really worked a on a sales team, making calls and doing all that work and everything. But when I conjure up ideas of a sales team, I'm thinking of folks sitting at a computer making 100 phone calls a day, just really pumping something, not caring about what the customer needs, but just kind of forcing what it is that they need to sell into their lives. And maybe even taking like some bit of feedback just as a manipulative way to say, like, oh, even getting to know them well enough that they can trust you to tell you that they're going to test something new, or they're going to run into some issues on Black Friday or something like that. So you're really becoming more of like almost like a consultant. It feels like than like that what that typical salesperson might look like in my head, anyways.
I would say yes, but the thing is like I have managed teams where we did make 400 calls a week. That was like a goal that we had. And now this was back in like 2018 where the downloading of the ebook MQL was like the end all be all of like lead generation. So, but I will say my team was reaching out to people, and a lot of it at that time were medium sized to small sized agencies, lots and lots of freelancers. But the books that they were downloading were things like how to get 0 to 30 sites in 30 days, or, you know, I don't you we could tell, by what they were downloading, maybe what they were trying to work on, and so instead of just having my team calling people and not really having anything of value to say when they picked up the phone, I would teach my teams how to teach agencies or freelancers like how to package their own services so that they can get recurring revenue, or how to use blueprints and templates to be able to build sites quickly, or how to look at the verticals that they were typically selling to and then market towards that. And we ended up actually coming up with some campaigns that the marketing team ended up doing eventually based on those talk tracks that my team was doing. So I'm not saying that, we didn't make a ton of phone calls, but I've always felt that even though we're in the days of cell phones, it's very much like, I don't know if you ever had people call in the middle of dinner and like your
Oh
mom
yeah,
or
I
dad would
hate
be,
that.
don't pick up that phone. It's going to be a salesperson. And I've always kind of had that in the back of my head that even though we're not in landlines anymore, if somebody picks up the phone, you better have something good to say, because
Yeah,
now everyone's always busy doing something, but you are interrupting their day. Like they could think it
right.
was like a doctor's office or something, and that's why they picked up. So I think even when it comes to I downloaded something and now these people are calling me, it should still feel like a genuine interaction. It shouldn't feel like here's a script of what you're reading. It should still feel like, oh, that's Jesse calling me from WP Cloud.
Right, right. I like what you touched on there, which is that you're thinking about it from different angles as well. Like if your goal is to sell more instances of sites, you're not necessarily approaching it from the perspective of like going into an agency and trying to package up something and say, if you buy this today, it'll save you money in the future. You're actually saying you would empower them to open up new lines of business or to even give them sales strategies so that they can work to improve their own bottom lines and to drive more revenue for themselves, which has obviously an impact on the sales process in which you're doing. So you're thinking much more long tail than just like a short fix, like I need to solve for this right this minute. You're trying to build up opportunities that can last longer and to reap a lot more rewards. It sounds like in the future.
Yeah, I think a lot of agencies in particular, especially medium-sized ones, and I think large ones deal with this, but mostly medium or small agencies, they're very, very project to project. And so what they're trying to do is protect the people that they work with by making sure that they have that next thing in their pipeline. So when you're consulting, especially agencies that are trying to get into hosting, you're also helping them protect their employees. No one ever wants to have to lay off employees, but that's something that agencies can be prone to if they don't have something that they are packaging up, and feel confident that they can provide service wise, because a lot of agencies they didn't want to offer hosting back then because they were nervous that they wouldn't be able to back up that service. Like they were nervous, like, what if they come to me and like that's not my thing? So you have to make sure
Sure.
you're making them feel comfortable about the support. But yeah, I could probably go on and on about it very clearly, but I think at the end of the day, if you insert yourself in the shoes of the employees that you're talking to and you learn about what they're trying to accomplish and kind of you know, what has gotten in their way in a more normal way, and it doesn't feel like a, oh, I gotcha, there's your pain point, like a sales conversation. You'll learn a lot about how you can end up helping people.
Yeah. But the reality of the situation is that a lot of hosting companies don't operate that way. We see it all the time where they use fear marketing. They put a lot of pressure on customers. They squeeze them for every dollar that they can get out of them. And it creates a really fragile relationship with that end customer because, we all know that WordPress is built to be migrated, right? Data liberation, the way in which the open web, or rather the open source technology behind it supports the opportunity for you to migrate and move things around. So why aren't we doing it more? And the answer is typically because migration's a pain. You don't want to convince your client to move to a new hosting company. There's a lot of logistical stuff that goes on behind that, but that's not enough, I don't think, to create loyalty and to have people really love your brand. But I'm curious, when you were in your past working with different hosting companies, it sounds like you took a very ethical approach. You really wanted to build relationships. You didn't want to just do this hard sell kind of, I'm going to pawn off this product on you and I'm going to get your money. But but were the other teams at those hosting companies always operating the same way? Like, for example, what I could think of is that the marketing team may have an email list and really push a product on behalf of the sales team and send an email out to, maybe millions of customers in one hit, prompting them to call the sales team because they need a thing, right? Was there coordination in those situations with your team? Did you sometimes ever get surprised by what was emailed to customers? Would you want more control over that messaging?
I would say maybe really early in, there was a little bit of that, but we figured out pretty quickly to be very, very lockstep with demand generation. And when you're lockstep with your demand generation team and your marketing team, that's when you end up having those, like I said, they took the conversations we were having with people on the phones where they were really, really enjoying that help and then created a program out of it. And then people could access it without having to talk to a salesperson. Jasmine just started at Automattic, and she was a member of the marketing team that I was very close with as well. And, really what we were doing was finding ways to set the customer and the prospect up for success and sales. Like, I don't want to call you if you don't want to talk to me, but I don't want you to call me and then have me have no idea what you're talking about. So there was a lot of, we would do marketing and sales kickoffs and that sort of thing, but we would also give the marketing team ideas and then they would give us ideas and we would really work together. That way, what good is sending out, 1,000 or whatever, however many emails to people and having them call into the sales line if the salespeople are like, huh? Like, you
Yeah.
know, you want to buy what?
Yeah.
So I feel very thankful to have gotten to work with quite a few marketing teams that understand the benefit of, working with salespeople. We can be pushy, and I appreciate that. But I've really made some good friends on marketing teams along the way.
Sure. Yeah. So if you're currently working at a hosting company, maybe on the sales team, and you do feel like there's some shady stuff happening that you're maybe a part of, you don't have responsibility for, but you do want to shift things into a better direction, what kind of advice would you give them? How would you help them to make a case to their bosses, to their executives about shifting the mentality away from this predatory type sales and into something that's a little bit more consultative or helpful?
Yeah, I think as a salesperson in my career, I found that the best way to shift the way that things are done is if you can show that you're successful doing it your way and don't put yourself in like a bad position or anything, but if all you're doing is selling consultatively, honestly, and really doing some great discovery and getting to know a business in order to make sure that the hosting is right for them, that's not going to get you in trouble. And the best thing that you can do is do it that way. And then when people around you, if you're in the office, when people around you start to hear all the, success that you're getting out of it, that's when you teach it to the person next to you. And then you can go to your boss and say, "Hey, like I've been doing this new thing and then so and so started trying it and we're really getting some great traction on it." That's really what I've always done my whole career. I think that sales is not just what makes you good, it's also talking to the people around you and what's working for you. And then you get, the best pieces and you kind of Frankenstein them together. And then you find a way to still make it sound like you and not the person that sits next to you. And then it's really ends up being you having the conversation and not you regurgitating things. But it
Right.
works because at the end of the day, sales is all about money, and there are ways to do it and do it in a very honest way. And but the way to get the people above you to want to do that is to show them where the money is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
practice.
It's funny because before I joined Automattic, which was actually through an acquisition of a security company, I was working very hard to try and help people understand that they need security products. Now, it doesn't mean that they need to pay, but they definitely need security products. And a lot of the times, people didn't even understand why they were vulnerable. If they're running a small mom and pop, retail shop or something like that, they're not even collecting credit cards. They're just trying to create a website where they show their hours or something like that. Why would they be at risk? Why would someone want to hack their site? And the reality of the situation that we had to explain to them through direct conversations, through scalable marketing, things like that, like we had to get the message out that you're vulnerable because people want the power behind your website. They want to hack your website so they can use the servers to create an army of slave or zombie websites that can be used for a variety of things, mostly malicious. And so a lot of the pressure I got from the investors at our startup was that we need to do stronger messaging. We need to scare people. And the thing that got me really that really struck home for me is that I didn't want to do anything that would leave a wake in the world of WordPress. I had come up from building WordPress websites back all the way back into the early 2000s, and I owed so much to the community, and I believed deeply in what WordPress stood for and the software behind it. That I felt like if I was trying to scare the pants out of off of people to help them understand that the world is a dangerous place and WordPress is vulnerable, then what am I actually doing in the long run? I'm doing a disservice to the ecosystem, doing a disservice to our community, because then we're not just scaring them as existing customers who may stick around on WordPress, but maybe we're scaring the people who might choose WordPress and now they're not going to. And I think that that's where I wanted to have this conversation with you, because I wanted hosting companies to hear from someone who's worked in this field for so long and has so much experience, how you can do so much more around your sales processes and the ways in which you go to market with these products. Uh, but you don't have to negatively impact the community. You don't have to instill fear in people to get them to buy. What you're saying, and if I'm going to distill down everything you said into a small little bite here, is that if you build relationships and you build trust between people, then when it comes time to tell them that they need something, they're actually going to believe you, which means that they're going to take advantage of that offer. You're going to make a sale. They're going to get a service that they actually need. And then overall, you're creating a much more loyal customer, because it's not so bad to sell something. It's not so bad to pay for something. I think a lot of times we're afraid to ask people to take their credit card out, and we think that that's going to be a negative conversation no matter how we have it. But it doesn't need to be that way. We can solve problems for you by selling you something, and we still have to keep the lights on. I think people understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you are selling the right way, you're never going to feel guilty and you'll feel a little less weird when you ask, okay, like I'm sending you the contract, let me know what your thoughts are. You'll feel a little less like, oh, like
Right.
nervous
Yep.
if you feel like this is like a conversation that you guys have been having and, it's been a partnership and a consultative, consultative. partnership.
Yep.
And it hasn't felt like, somebody pushing something.
Right.
And I think scare tactics don't work because nobody wants to feel like they're buying something because they're scared.
Yeah.
The best thing that I've ever done was help my teams get to know more people in the WordPress community. And you and I have had these conversations where some of the most funny stories to look back on are the failures of hosting or the failures of developing a website or the funny like things that people have to come in. They're like, my website is super weird looking. I don't know what happened or whatever. And if you get to know people and you have your, colleagues get to know people in the WordPress community, then they can pass on those stories and say, "Oh, I know you're dealing with a security issue right now. I actually just talked to somebody the other day that dealt with it, and we can only laugh about it now
Yeah.
because it's fixed.
Right.
But this is what happened to them, and we were able to fix it pretty easily, but it would have kept happening if we
Yeah.
hadn't have fixed it." And I think that just getting to know people and being able to tell those stories, which is, I think, something that you had mentioned as well,
Right.
is the best way to be able to pass on information and have it not be, it doesn't have to be scary.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, and it's actually a great place to leave off for the podcast. I mean, we did a whole episode already. It didn't feel like 30 minutes, but we felt like 5 minutes. It was such a great conversation. I'd love to have you on again. We can continue this conversation. Hopefully, some people will ask some questions, and maybe we can dig into those again in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool. Well, this has been the Impressive Hosting Podcast. Please make sure that you like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Elise, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jesse.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Impressive Hosting, where we uncover the core tenets of great WordPress hosting. Do you have a follow-up question for today's guest, thought or comment on anything we talked about, a future guest suggestion, a hosting horror story? What do you think makes great WordPress hosting? All your comments shape this show. Drop them on impressive.host. We also appreciate you following us on social media and subscribing to the podcast on your favorite platform. Finally, do check out our list of open source projects that need support at impressive.host. Whether it's code, community, or cache, you can make a difference. See you next time.